Welcome to RPITV Live. Now it's been 3 weeks since I did it myself, and it's been a busy old 3 weeks. I'm just making sure that everybody can see me. Yeah, can. That's it. That's all good. So remember to share out the video. Remember to share out wherever you're watching, to share it to people that may want to watch us. Got lots to talk about today, and I can see we've got people watching, which is great. Let me know that you can hear me all right. If that's okay, just message to say that you can hear me. Stephen Morgan, Chris Bennett, thank you very much. Much appreciated for that. We've got people watching on YouTube. We've got people watching on Facebook. All over. Great. Excellent. Jeffrey Abel, how are you doing? Alan Cowap. Neil Gibson's watching on YouTube. Great. Excellent. That's really good. So, yeah, so a bit of a recap first then, really. Joshua's watching as well. All good. Excellent. That's really good. Yeah, so a bit of a recap, really. First of all, an apology for last week. I was all excited to be getting back from China and telling you all about it, but I developed a really bad headache, which turned into a migraine, and it wasn't very good. And normally I try and get rid of them, but didn't happen. So it's the first time I've ever cancelled an RPI live show, and hopefully it won't ever happen again. But apologies for having to cancel it short notice. I really thought or wanted to think that I would be able to get rid of it and do it, but I didn't. So anyway, apologies for that. So lots to talk about tonight, and let's get on with it because I'm a little bit late coming on. It will teach me to do software updates on the software. I hope you like the software. I really like it, and it's something that I'm really pleased with. We've got, like, what have we got? We've got 40, 60, 70, over 70 people watching on Facebook, and we've got 3 people watching on YouTube. And like I also said, you can go to rpilive.com and you can actually see this live. So if you go to RPI Live, I'm going to share my screen with you and you'll be able to see. Let's hope this doesn't screw it up. If you go to RPI Live, you will be able to, or you should be able to see the show as well. That's something I'm just finishing up and working on, but that's the plan, that anybody can go to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Periscope, and even go to RPI Live, and you will be able to see the show in real time and live. So I don't know if you saw or not. I had some issues with broadcasting from China. I did a recorded thing instead. I recorded the video instead because technically broadcasting on Facebook, 1, in theory you shouldn't do it, and 2, it was just a nightmare with the internet and stuff over there. And so I just recorded a video instead. I hope you saw that. I did try and put that out on Facebook before I got back, and then the reality is it was a big video file. So it is actually on YouTube. If you go to the RPI YouTube channel you'll be able to see the full thing. And the video was about 40 minutes long, and it just demonstrates just exactly how massive things are. So I just want to show you RPI Live a minute. I'm going to try and not screw this up. 1 second. So if you aren't able to get on Facebook or YouTube or what have you, this may or may not work, I don't know, but let's see. Hopefully you can see that. So that is this show broadcasting on RPI Live. So the whole goal is to you know, let's call it as it is, right? I've had a bunch of problems as this show's grown. I've had a bunch of problems with people reporting the videos for no reason. I mean, this is doing my head in now, so I'm going to stop it. But but basically, that is us broadcasting live. So if you just go to RPI Live, let me stop doing this now because it's properly doing my head in, because it's kind of repeating on itself. Okay, 1 sec. Hang on. I don't want to show the screen anymore. I want to do my camera. So basically, if you just go to rpilive.com, you will be able to see this show and listen to it. And anytime I'm live or anybody else is live, you will be able to go there and see it. Now, it's not finished yet because I want to integrate comments in there so people can see the Facebook comments and all the different comments that are going on across the different platforms. And then, of course, I'm going to add in all of the other videos that we've done. But like I say, the reality is, you know, I've done some really, if I do say so myself, kick-ass videos over the last 6 months, and within a couple of days they've been removed for whatever BS reason, without getting into all of that. So actually it was in Portugal that I decided, you know what, I've had enough of this. Just relying on one channel to be the main place for all of the videos. You know, the reality at the moment is that if I look at I can see now how many people are watching. In fact, I'll share this with you. Let me share this with you. So, well, I'm not going to bother sharing because you just get that repeat thing. But I can see at the moment 23 people are watching on the RPI Facebook page. 7 people are watching on YouTube. Nobody's watching on Twitter. That's fair enough. 3 people are watching on my timeline. 2 people are watching on another Facebook page, and 23 people are watching in the Facebook RPI group. So Facebook is our biggest platform, right? But again, I don't want to just be relying on that. And with this software and with this system I've got in place, people can go to rpilive.com and just watch the live TV shows right there. And eventually, like I said, I'm finishing it off this week. It doesn't look a lot at the moment, but it's been technically a bit of a nightmare getting it up and running to where it broadcasts live. But RPI Live will be the place where everybody knows to go to. Now, you can still watch it on Facebook. You can still watch it on the pages. You can watch it on YouTube Direct. You can watch it all of the platforms. We'll be broadcasting to all of the platforms, but you can go to rpilive.com and watch it, and nobody's removing that video because it's on our own systems and it's there forever. And assuming that everything is okay with YouTube as it currently is at the moment, all of our videos will be on YouTube. But at the same time, all of our videos will be on RPI Live for people to watch. So you just know that rpilive.com is the place to go. And obviously it will link to Racing Pigeon International, the main website, and all that stuff. But that's been the plan, to make it completely self-sufficient, so we're not relying on any one place, you know. And that's been a big lesson. Like I said, it was Portugal that made me realize, you know what, I've had enough of this. Just whoever reporting stuff because whatever reasons they've got. And it was in Portugal, so it's a while ago now that I've been trying to figure the best way of doing it, and having your own platform for it live, and then broadcasting it over to everything else. There's other platforms we can broadcast to, but obviously Facebook is the main one. So anyway, that's that, and that's happening. And along the same lines, before I start talking about China, along the same lines as this independence, you know, I had in my mind within about 3 months of 2 months of starting all of this, that this sport needs its own social network. You know, all of this Facebook stuff, people having stuff removed, all of this stuff. It's, you know, let's call it as it is. It's BS. You know, it's all politics, it's all this, it's all that. And it's so easy. I've been there myself. I've experienced that it's so easy to have stuff removed just because some other geezer's jealous or whatever. So we had, you know, I set up racingpigeonnetwork.com, and it was really not up to the job it needed to be. Now, with a lot of work, a lot of money that it's took to get it wrong, and now some more money to hopefully get it right, in the spirit of independence and not being beholden to any one network, my goal is by this time next week's show, the new version of Racing Pigeon Network will be launched. Now, I'm very aware that, you know, everybody is dogging the pigeon sport is on Facebook. And that's fine. So I'm not expecting everybody just to switch to Racing Pigeon Network. But what I am looking at is posts made on Racing Pigeon Network will be able to be posted on Facebook, and posts on Facebook will be able to be displayed on Racing Pigeon Network, and it will all cross-work together. But when I and others have had the amount of hassle and rubbish, you know, on Facebook specifically, because that seems to be the most troublesome one, you do think to yourself, you know, this sport needs its own network. So that's what's going to be happening. New software is in place. It's just some time to get it all figured out. But my priority is getting rpilive.com to get all the video stuff sorted out, which is nearly there. It's just adding and making other bits and bobs in there. And like I said, we're actually live on there right now. And then Racing Pigeon Network as well. And to have our own social network, you know, there's no logical reason why livestock, or specifically racing pigeons, should be banned on Facebook. There's many groups selling fish and dogs and birds. Why the pigeon sport is targeted, I don't know. But we need our own social network for it. And this will really work just like Facebook, but it'll just be for the sport without any of the BS. So that's what we're working on. Right, let me move on to China. In fact, before I do that, let's catch up with some comments. Fran Cullen, nice to see you, Fran. Nice to see you tune in. Alan Couch, the sound is good, thank you. Kerry Hughes. Kerry, I think you messaged me That's another apology I need to make. Once again, I've got way behind on Facebook messages. So my goal over the next 24 hours is to catch up on that as well. Apologies if I haven't messaged you. I literally haven't checked my messages properly since China, really. So if I owe you messages, then apologies, and I will catch up to you. But I remember seeing a message coming in from you. I'm sure it was you, Kerry, and I will message you back within the next 24 hours. I promise. Simon Lee Hall, how are you doing? Tom Swiftson. What categories are the top in China? I'll talk to you. Gabby, how are you doing, Gabby? I'll tell you about China next. I will tell you all about that. Gary's on. I know Gary's not feeling great today. He's got some sickness and diarrhea bug going on, which is not good. Been removed because people are jealous. And yeah, well, we know all about that, Gaz. Bill Buxton, thank you very much. Davey Redmond, it is sad, but it is what it is, mate. Michael Harrod, it's happening in fish sites. Oh, so it's Jeffrey Abel says it's happening on fish sites as well. Okay, well that's interesting. What kind of fish are you into, Jeffrey? I'm really desperate at some point to start having a marine fish tank again. I used to keep marine fish about 10 years ago, and I know everything's moved forward now, but I really would like a marine fish tank. I saw one on TV and I thought I really would like to keep a marine fish tank again because it was an amazing thing to do. Kerry, thank you. Walter James Windus, do I need to be a member of the RPRA to enter 3 birds, which I could get? I think you're talking. If you're talking about Gary's race, the birds have to be RPRA wrong, or they have to be wrong. But Gary does. Gary does a. He's got venture birds for sale where you don't even have to be a member of the RPRA to get them, because at the end of the day, all of the birds in any one-off race are in theory owned by the race manager, the race owner. But Walter, just message me and I'll help you in any way I can with any specifics. Bogdan Stroh, how you doing, mate? Could you do a breeder buyer on here for me? Stephen Morley, message me, Stephen. Let me know what you're thinking. Jason Wincop's in. Hope you're well and have a good show. Thank you, Melvin. Right, so China. I flew out to China on Thursday, so two weeks, 2.5 weeks ago now. Time flies. I flew out there on it was like Thursday lunchtime from Birmingham via Amsterdam. Got to Beijing at 10 o'clock the next morning. So it was about a 12-hour flight journey from airport to airport. And then that was all good. And then it took me bloody 3 hours to get from Beijing airport to Langfang, which is where the show was. The event was being held. Because I tried to get in a taxi, and I sat for 20 minutes in the taxi, and I got people beeping the taxi driver, and I'd got the address in Chinese, and then it was decided after 20 minutes that the geezer couldn't take me outside of Beijing, and then I had to go on a bus. It was a bit of a nightmare, but that was the only time it was a nightmare. It took me 3 hours to get from Beijing airport to the hotel in Langfang. When I got there, great hotel right next to the venue. So I'm going to assume you've seen the video I put out about it, right? And if you haven't, go and look at it on YouTube. But, well, first of all, on the Saturday morning, I got there, and before you even get into the venue, you're blown away by the amount of people outside the venue, and essentially there's a whole other market outside the venue, and the amount of stall holders outside the venue is as big perhaps as maybe Blackpool show. And I haven't been to Blackpool show since 2015, so I don't know what it's like, but when I was there, it's maybe as big. Not necessarily that many bird sales, but equipment sales. There was people. There was one of the busiest areas outside, you'll see it on the video, was essentially like a little market selling pigeons. But it was massive. It was absolutely massive outside. Then when you go in, I went to the benzing stand, and I have to say a couple of thank yous to people. The co-owner of the exhibition, Mr. George, and his son, Carl, were the most gracious, amazing hosts ever. I was invited, before I actually went to the show, on the Friday night, I was invited to the opening dinner, and it was a great evening, and I was made very welcome, and I went to dinner every night, and I didn't have to put my hand in my pocket once. I went to dinner every night because I was invited by Mr. George and his business partner and Carl, his son. Great people, really nice people. And the benzing guys over there were really helpful. They bought McDonald's for lunch every day and gave me some, and it was really nice to hang around with the benzing guys as well. And what was nice as well is that anytime I've ever met Thomas Zimmerman, he's always been busy, stressed and hassled at every show I've been to before, but he wasn't at this. And like I said on the video, it's because in China, you can't use the benzing system if you're not doing one-off races over there. So actually, the staff weren't as the benzing staff weren't as busy as they would normally be in Europe, let's say. So I was able to use the benzing. I was able to use the benzing stand and the behind the stand and all of that for my stuff. Anyway, so I met my Chinese translator, who the organisers of the show had arranged for me, and she was a great university student in Langfang, and she was essentially went round with me for 2 days of the show, and a great girl who really helped me out. Now, as soon as you walk in to this show, this is like next level. And I think big, right? I'm a big thinker. I've got quite an open mind as to how my mind works, and my way of thinking is quite diverse and big thinking, right? And I already had an impression that this thing was going to be a next level in China, and the sport was going to be the next level to where I've not seen before. But this place even blew my mind. The level that this show was at was even unbelievable for me. And again, I'm assuming you've watched the video. The video doesn't do it justice. The video is a good insight into the show, but you need to be there to kind of experience it. But next best thing is the video I did, and it is mind-blowing. Everything from the sheer amount of people there, the masses of people there, through to the actual complete mass of show stands and how big these show stands are. You know, like there were some show stands there that were 20 foot high. Actually, some European show stands were 20 foot high. To where it's a next level. Now, a large percentage of the show stands there, I would say, I don't know, 65–70% of the show stands there were all vitamins, products, and health-related product stands. Probably more of a concentration of Belgium and Dutch flyers and lofts in one place than I've seen before. A plethora of one loft race stands, some of which I'd never heard of before. And when I tell you about the level, again, go and look at the video. I actually took a video of some of the videos running on these show stands, because I'm a marketing guy, I'm an entrepreneur at heart, I'm a business guy, but some of the show stands blew my mind with how professional they looked. And some of the one loft race stands out there were just unbelievable. The Pioneer Club was there, the Thailand race was there, two or three big races I'd never heard of in China. Now, here's some stats just coming sideways for a minute that I heard, and I think I've got them correct. And I heard some of these stats from the Benzing guys. There's over 1,000 one loft races in China alone. Now, I knew that stat before I actually went. Over 1,000 one loft races in China alone. Now, think about that for a minute. That's the equivalent of one loft race. I know you could say, well, the population of China, the pigeon racing population of China is reportedly 1 million people, right? Or if you look at the official stats, it's 400,000 people, whatever. Let's go with the million. If you look at it and you say, okay, what that essentially means is there is one loft race per 1,000 people competing. China's obviously a massive country, so it's 1 in 1,000. So for every 1,000 flyers there are, there's a one loft race. Okay, that kind of gets it a bit more realistic in the numbers, comparatively. But that would be the equivalent of there being 21 loft races in the UK. And there's nowhere near that many. So what I'm trying to say is, one loft racing over there is massive. Another stat that I heard late night in the bar, and I actually have a video of one of these lofts I'm talking about. Now, again, takes a lot to wow me and blow my head these days, but this next thing completely blew even my head. There are over 700 individual fanciers flyers in China. And how many, right, so there's 700 lots. I'm going to ask this question, and it's going to be a bit of a pain in the ass to answer because I know there's a delay on the live broadcast, but have a guess at the amount of birds these 700 lofts fly. Not one loft races, individual fanciers flyers. How many birds do you think at least 700 lofts fly in China? Give me your guesses. Let's get some in there in the comments. Let's get some guesses in there. How many birds do at least 700 individual flyers fly in China? Give me a guess. Give me your ideas, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Fire your guesses in, and I will come back to the guesses to see if anybody's near. So that's 700 flyers. How many birds do you think at least 700 flyers in China fly as part of their race team? Give me your guesses. Right. So yeah, going back to the show. So a lot of one-off races, a mass amount of Pat. Good guess. Keep going. Guess away. Keep them coming in, guys, and I will come back to it when the guesses are in. So, yeah, like I said, probably 70% of the trade stands, health product related, lots of products that we can't get here. And lots of one-off races. Now they take the one-off races to a next level. You can literally, So I'm getting. All right. Okay. All right. We've got lots of guesses on that. I'll come back. Let's deal with this now because people are putting them all in. So here's the stat. There are over 700 individual, say not one-off races, individual lofts that have teams of over 10,000 birds. Yeah, 10,000 birds each loft. And I'll upload a video that I've got of one of these lofts. And like I said, this is not a one-off race. These are individual flyers with over 10,000 birds each loft. So if you go on 10,000, that's, say if you said each loft just had 10,000, some of them have got over 10,000, right? But yeah, that's 70. What's that? 70, 10,000, 70,000, 700,000. It's unbelievable. Can you imagine? 10,000 birds each loft. That's 7 million birds, at least 7 million birds, just with them. And then there's another. Well, it depends what stats you go with. There's either another 399,000 people or 999,000 people flying as well. So yeah, good guesses, folks. Good guesses. But yeah, 10,000 birds. And the biggest one-off race in China, and again, I think I've got these numbers right, is over 15,000 birds. And literally over there and in Taiwan. Now, Taiwan's an interesting one because actually the organizers of the event are actually based in Taiwan. Taiwan's a massive country for flying as well, obviously. But, you know, it's very easy just to think of China as full of millionaires, mob flyers, 10,000 birds, what have you. But the harsh reality is that if you said there's 1 million people there, right, that are flying, 99% of them people are just normal guys like us over here in the UK flying, right? It's easy to hear of the multimillionaires and the billionaires flying, but actually 98, 99% of people over there, if you said there's 1 million people, 980,000 of them are normal guys flying. So it's, I just want to get that into context. Most of those people at that show were just normal guys, normal working guys. Let's just see some of the comments. And the lads in my club call me a mob flyer with 30, Keith. But that's a mentality thing, isn't it, Keith? That's the funny thing, isn't it? That's 3 40-foot transporters, 3 30-foot transporter trailers a day for training each loft. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, Fran, that they don't fly 10,000 birds in a day, but they've got these teams. You can imagine they've got the sprint, the middle, the long, and they've got different teams for different days, whatever. But that's how immense it is. Technically, and yes, it's China, technically, it's light years ahead of us. Light years. I actually saw I saw 2 companies there that have developed live tracking for pigeons. And I've spoken to them both. They have developed live tracking for pigeons. And the rings are relatively big, but not to where you think it would be prohibitive. But live tracking is there. Now, when I asked them about Europe, it doesn't work in Europe yet because it's different GPS, different stuff. But to me, live tracking is the key to this sport going mainstream. And this company are developing it. And again, it wouldn't be a thing where you can have live tracking of every single pigeon because it would just be way too cost prohibitive. But you could have a group of birds within the kit flying that would be very accurate, Ian, within 10 meters, but doesn't work in Europe yet. So yeah, a couple of people watched it. Yeah, it is the way as well. Live tracking is the way to go mainstream with this sport. A couple of people that watched the video, they were saying we're 40 years behind. Another guy said we're in the dark ages. Another guy said, ask them why they keep buying all of our pigeons for so much and ruining our sport. And various other opinions. I went over there with an open mind, and I already knew, like I said, it was going to be big, but it did blow my mind just how big and sophisticated. I tell you, the most impressive show stand I saw over there was Mr. Keir's stand, the guy that bought Armando. His stand was what you would expect to see at a highly technical electronics type stand. It looked amazing, and essentially he's got a breeding stud within China now. That's what he's got. Now, my observation is this, that from a commercial point of view, yes, you're still going to get top people selling, buying top birds coming into China. But actually, again, 95% of people can't afford to buy those kinds of birds. So ultimately, the lower end birds that in Europe people are used to selling into China, I think eventually will drop off more. There won't be as much of a demand. And I'll tell you why I think that. It costs about $250 to get a bird into China. Now, what people are doing over there is they're bringing, just like any stud, they're bringing, any stud is bringing them over, but again, the mass market can't afford thousands of pounds for pigeons. So ultimately, you already can see it, but studs are setting up over there, bringing, like we do here, bringing the best that they can in and selling then Chinese-run birds over into China. And I think you're going to see a bit of a shift in that, my personal opinion. Let's see what we said. Live tracking, yeah. Not being negative about live tracking. It's a great idea, of course, but I wouldn't like to track my pigeons. I love the excitement of never knowing what's happening. I love it. Yeah. Aaron, thanks for watching, mate. I get what you're saying. I think tracking's good because we already have retroactive tracking, i.e. once the pigeon comes back, you can take the ring off and see where it's been. I think that's good for understanding a lot about the pigeon. I personally think live tracking is great for one-off races. I know, because I've done enough of them now, you've got that gap. You've got the gap of, right, the birds are up. And then you've got the gap of waiting. And then you've got the gap, right, they're expected now, but they're not here yet. And the possibilities, like Ian's just said, that the possibilities that live tracking brings, especially for like one-off races and for that mainstream element of it. It's the key for it to go mainstream. Not necessarily in individual flyers, lofts, but the mainstream side of it, which is something I'm going to be talking about a little bit later. But yeah, so listen, the Chinese have took this sport to a level that is unimaginable to a lot of people. Always round. But and the amount of young people there, the amount of kids that were there was unbelievable. The percentages of kids there compared to kids that you'd see at UK and European shows was massive compared. The amount of young Chinese people there was massive compared. Not kids, but younger adults type thing. Was big. Now we have I've previously talked about like the increase in numbers within some Eastern European countries. Poland is increasing in numbers, Romania is increasing in numbers, but then we've got a decline in Belgium, Holland, UK, and Ireland. Why is that? We've asked the question before. Why is the sport so big in Taiwan and China? Why are so many young people involved in this sport? And the single biggest answer, from what I can tell, is one word: gambling. Gambling is illegal in China. but in reality is a way of people gambling on races. Gambling on individual races or one-off races or club races or any of that. The ability to the gambling of in the sport is the single biggest thing pushing the growth of this sport. That's it, hands down. And that's interesting. Because the growth of the sport, yes, it's a massive country, 1 billion people, but the growth of the sport percentage-wise, you know, if you look at it from a population point of view, in China there's 1 billion people, and let's say there's 1 million, flyers there, so that's 1 in 1,000. Okay, 1 in 1,000 people fly pigeons. If you take the population of the UK, there's 66 million people. And if you took that, that would be, what would that be? 66. 66,660,6.6. 660. So yeah, so there are essentially about 3 times more people per capita. There's 3 times more people per capita racing in China than there is in the UK. And interestingly, back in the late 80s, we had about 60,000 people racing, and now there's 20. So actually, we did have the numbers per capita that Chinese have got now. But like I say, gambling is the single biggest thing that is catapulting the growth of the racing pigeon sport in China. And when you look at how they do it, and you look at, and like I said, let's remember, 95% of people over there are normal people. All right? So it's not just millionaires flying with millionaires. The 95% of people over there are completely normal working class people. But at the same time, you can win a race over there as a relatively normal person, normal working type class person, not a millionaire is what I'm trying to say. You can win a race over there and it can change your life. You can become a millionaire in China from winning one race. You win a national or an international here, what do you get if you're a European flyer? What do you get? You get the recognition, you get a nice trophy, and if you're lucky enough to win an international race, you'll have somebody knock on your door to give you a couple $100,000 for the bird. But over there, you can win. You can become a millionaire by winning a race. And you don't have to be a millionaire in the first place to start. That's the massive, significant difference over there. It's mind-blowing how big this sport is. I learned a lot. I made some really good contacts. I got speaking to some really nice people. Like I said, the Benzing guys were really nice to me. They let me use all of their facilities, drink their coffee, drink their Diet Coke, and use their facilities. And I may have a stand there next year back at the show. I may have a stand there. It was mind-blowing. Let me just see what comments are. Live tracking may also give us an understanding as to where and when they split. Absolutely. I've already seen some live tracking. Can't say whose it was, but I've seen live tracking where you can see the danger spots with falcons and stuff. Rob Van der Veen. And not knowing keeps the interest. I think tracking's good for more data. Even the retrospective tracking is good. See, Carl, you don't like tracking, but again, it'd be down to clubs. I don't think it's necessarily relevant for clubs. I'm talking about taking the sport mainstream, which doesn't necessarily involve single loft flyers. Joe Freely, how are you? ETS has its perks, not saying it's just exciting, not running in. Yeah, I get what you're saying, Cole. I'm just reading a Jason McCarthy comment. When people had down the pits and such like, nothing for them to do back compared to now. Social club workmen were thriving. Yeah, I get what you're saying, Jason. I agree. Relatively, Poland and Romania are relatively, I wouldn't say poor. Well, they are compared to the UK, but young people have a different opinion about work and manual work. But like I say, the single biggest thing driving Chinese racing pigeon sport is the gambling. Let me just show you. These are two magazines, right? These are two magazines, and these are monthly magazines, right? These are monthly magazines. This is one magazine called Racing Pigeon World, and that's a monthly magazine. And look how impressive this is. This is the level. That's really hard to do in reverse. This is the level that they're operating at. That's one magazine, right? And then there's another magazine, and this is even bigger. And this is another monthly magazine. This is a Chinese magazine. Look how big that is. That is a monthly magazine in China. It's unbelievable. The presentation of it is like a proper magazine, you know? And it's huge. You've got a lot of European people advertising in here. Look at this for an advert. Look at this. This is a... Right, so try and look at this meeting room. This is a function room, right? Can you see that? That's the function room of a racing club called Pioneer Red. That's the advert of a club. That's the level it's at. Massive magazines. I came back actually with 17 kilos. What's that? About 35 pounds of books and magazines because I wanted to get my head around it more. So yeah, that was China. Andrew, you're sorry that you think that's what's killing the sport. They will do anything to win. Well, you see, that leads me on to my last topic about what I saw in China. And if I look back at the last 10 months that I've been doing back involved in this, and I look at what I said initially, and I say now, pretty much everything I still believe in, or I've learned a lot in the last 10 months. But the idea that money, look, at the end of the day, to get this sport back to how it was, something radical has to change. And ,95% of people in China are working class people, but actually there's a lot bigger gambling element into the sport than there is over here. So the argument that money's killing the sport, as I said back in March when I first wrote my first article, I don't see what problem people have with money into a sport. The biggest problem the sport has is there's no league system. So at the moment, if you're a normal working class guy who just wants to fly his birds into his own back garden and compete with big flyers with lots of money behind them, there's no league system. You're competing with the same geezer. And that's the same as a local Sunday League football club competing with a Premier League club. This is never going to happen. It's never going to work. How they race over there is completely different to here. But the idea that money ruins the sport, I get what people are saying about the cheating element of it. If there's money involved, there's more likelihood for people to want to cheat. That says a lot more about the people involved that are potentially going to cheat than anything. Can't blame money specifically for that. But what I'm saying is this. Like I said in March, April, when I wrote my first articles, money, there's nothing wrong with money itself in any hobby or sport. But something radically has got to change to reverse the numbers in Europe. And money coming into it to attract more mainstream people has got to be a good thing. Something drastic and radical has got to happen to this sport moving forward for this sport to change and reverse its fortunes. Because at the moment it's dying on its arse in Europe, or certainly in Western Europe. Dying on its arse. Let's not, sugarcoat it. It is. And then yet you've got countries like Romania and Poland and China and Taiwan where it's growing. Now I know for a fact that there's a betting element that goes on in Romania because I've been there and I've been around the country. And that still shouldn't affect, if there is money in a betting element, it shouldn't still mean that one who doesn't want to bet on their birds is any less of an advantage. But ultimately, money will bring people in and the mainstream media in, and that's what we desperately need. I've been saying it for months. Relying on people to back garden fly, set up the lofts, get good birds, put all the time in, have all the bird of prey issues. Friday, Saturday, and maybe even Sunday took up. Family, time, work, all the expense. Competing against people that have been doing it years. It's a bloody hard sell to get. Let's say we wanted to reverse it back to the 80s, late 80s, when I remember it. Let's say we wanted to treble the amount of flyers in the UK. That's another 40,000 people. It's not going to happen on that. And like Walter James Windus has just said, if you're racing for some for more money, surely it would entice others to the sport. And that's what's happening in China. Ian Gill says, betting is one factor of the popularity in these countries, but the decline in Western Europe can be put down to more disposable income available. Yeah, true. But that actually, to me, in my head, I think, well, then there's got to be, we've got to counter that more disposable income. We're not getting into politics, Gary. What I'm saying is this, that something severely radical has got to happen in Western Europe for this sport to change fortunes. And money coming into it and maybe a gambling element would really help get that mainstream in, because if you could get mainstream popularity into this sport, getting 40 or 50,000 people interested and participating on a weekly basis in whatever level wouldn't be anywhere near too hard to achieve. But like I've said before, this is why I think One Love Racing is so good, because it has that mainstream appeal. And if you can bring live tracking into it so people actually on a big screen can see where the birds are and how far they are away, surely to catapult this forward, that's got to be a good thing. Like I said, China is 40 to 50 years ahead of where we're at in that sport. The sport, it's like we're back in the 80s, even further. And not every element of it is great in any way, shape or form, but it's thriving and it's growing. I'd be interested in your opinions on that. The next thing real quick is, if you're like me, you are I listen to the radio a lot when I'm working. And if you're like me, you are probably bored to the back teeth of hearing about Brexit, general elections, and what have you. Yeah, mining is massive in China as well, Gary. You're very right there. If you're like me, you're sick of hearing about politics, Brexit, general elections, and everything else. And one of the most fascinating and compelling pieces of radio I heard was a good few weeks ago now, but I haven't had time to talk about it. And the reason I'm talking about it, you'll see. What did you never think of, Kerry? Yeah, there's lots of ways it can be done, Walter. I, to be honest, I came back after seeing that and I thought, you know what? If I had the time inclination, there could be another... if I get the time, I'll talk to you about this a little bit. Sorry, Gary, the parrot's really talkative tonight. What can I do? Right, so the most compelling piece of radio I've heard in a long time. Harry, you've been told to shut up by Gary Russell. Harry, shut up. Was when, I don't know if you heard about this, but when it came out in the papers that Sir Rod Stewart had one of the biggest model railways around in his LA home. It's like over 200 foot long. And nobody ever knew that Sir Rod Stewart was into model railways. But it came out because he was interviewed in a magazine. Harry, be quiet. Gary tells you to be quiet. You've got to be quiet when Gary tells you to be quiet. Listen to Gary Russell. If not, you're going to get problems. Nobody... still not listening, Gary. What can I do? Nobody knew Rod Stewart had got this hobby. But it turns out he spent the last 30 years building this model railway. Yeah, their years are in front of us, Kerry. So he spent 30 years building this railway, model railway. Nobody knew it. And it was on BBC Radio 2, and Jules Holland was on. So you've got Jules Holland, who's also a model railway fanatic. You've got Jules Holland on, and you've got Sir Rod Stewart on, talking about model railways. And it was one. I've never been into model railways. Don't even think I had one as a kid. Not an interest really, but it was absolutely compelling listening to these two people talking about model railways. Celebrities, rock star, music guys in their own right. But the amount, I'm telling you now, the amount of people that think now model railways are cool, with how Rod Stewart described his passion for it and his love for it, I would guess there will be thousands of people looking into getting started in the hobby of model railways because Rod Stewart's doing it. And I was thinking to myself, we don't really have that. We have Mike Tyson that's interested in pigeons in the US. But there's a massive parallel between model railways and the sport of racing pigeons. And that is, a lot of people would think both of them are boring, fuddy-duddy sports or hobbies, right? But I'm telling you, the exposure the hobby of model railways got out of Rod Stewart showing this massive, impressive model railway that he's spent 30 years building is huge for that hobby. And we haven't really got that. The closest thing we had is Armando selling for $1.2 million and it hitting all the mainstream papers. But you've got this hobby, the two hobbies. One was a hobby and a sport. One's a hobby. The model railways is a hobby. And like Greg O'Reilly just said, you got Jack Duckworth, who's been dead 20 years in Coronation Street. You haven't really got anybody else. You haven't got celebrities or famous people in this. And people take notice of this. I'll guarantee you, I was fascinated by listening to it. Doesn't mean I'm going to go and do it. But I was fascinated by listening to Rod Stewart talk about his model railway and the dedication and the passion. And he said himself, a lot of people think it's boring. He didn't talk about it, but he loves it and he does it. And I just thought to myself, that's what this sport needs. You know? I'll guarantee you'll have hundreds, if not thousands of people going and buying model railways or getting their kids it for Christmas, or they want to get involved because a cool guy, relatively cool guy like Rod Stewart is doing it. And we haven't really got that. And there's some big parallels between the sport of racing pigeons and model railways. If you said to me, I'd think model railways is a bit boring. Without knowing it, some people would think the sport of pigeon racing is flat cap, whip it, boring. Have no idea how massive it is and how exciting it is and how great it is. There's some big comparisons there. And I think that's what we need to look at, and we need to exploit what we can, because at the moment, like I said earlier, it's going down. The numbers are going down. We need a radical shift, whether people like it or not. And I think, for what it's worth, I think personally, to get that mainstream, one-off racing, live tracking, big money prizes is the way of helping to revolutionize it. But again, I will say, that doesn't mean that somebody in their backyard can't go and fly a local club revel and not be interested in any of the new wave of stuff, as I'm going to call it. This is where there's got to be leagues, or there's got to be different types of clubs. Let's see what people are saying. Andrew Walton says, here's my results this year. 16 first, 12 seconds, 3 thirds, 11 fourths. £423 for all of that. I would spend that in a couple of months feeding and training. What I mean is money's not everything. Just watching your birds come well will win. Yeah, and I get that, Andrew. Watching them come back is good enough for some people. I'm not saying it should all turn to be about the money. Like I said, if you want to fly your birds back and compete and win, and not interested in them, and that's fine. But I'm talking about how are we going to turn the numbers down to where it's not just you and a couple of people in a big picture of local areas, where at the moment we're on 20,000. It was 60,000 in the late 80s. How is the sport going to turn around in the UK to where it's not just less than 5,000 people flying in the next 20 years? That's what I'm talking about. One of the things, let's just see. Chris Davis only got 15 minutes. I'm better, thank you, Chris. Yes, it's been a stressful week, if I'm honest, Chris, mate. It's been a stressful week, but I'm a lot better now. Thank you very much. Jerry Francis, top flight footballer and pigeon fancier. Maybe you could persuade the... Yeah, I see Jerry Francis got a sale on as well. I don't think you're going to persuade the royal family to talk more about theirs. But that's what I'm saying, I mean, the biggest celebrity I know of involved in pigeons or interested in pigeons is Mike Tyson. And I know Soren Florio knows Mike Tyson, so that might be something. Gary Thompson, Rod needs to go and see pigeon. Has see Kev Wagstaff from Laos collection of model trains. He has the best. There you go. I was, the last night in Beijing, I was with the Benzing guys. And we were talking about over there in China, they have community lofts. Now, I'm not talking about community lofts from a point of view of what we would know, but they have literally cities with multiple lofts in, 24 lofts in, and individual flyers and fancies racing to their own loft. And I said that wouldn't happen over here. It would cause too much problems. We haven't got the space over here. It wouldn't happen. But what I did develop, and it's kind of along the lines of, I've been saying one loft racing, as it is relatively at the infancy of things, of the progression. Let me explain what I mean by that. Imagine this, right? I still believe there's a major issue with not having one vote within the RPRA, not having it where clubs have got to go to feds have got to go to sections have got to go to the bloody top to get anything through. I believe it should be one person, one vote, and I don't get why it's not. I do know why it's not, because people at the top don't like the idea of massive change, right? Forget all of that for a minute. Imagine this as an idea. Douglas, I don't have the dates for next year's show, but I will be getting them shortly because I'm speaking to the organisers, and I can let you know, Douglas. If you just send me a message, as soon as I catch up, I'll send you the dates as soon as I've got them. Right, imagine this as an idea. What's everybody got at the moment? What are the major reasons for people not coming into the sport? Time, money, they're the main two. Time and money. And a perception issue as well. So imagine a community loft. Let's say a club ran the community loft. A group of people all raced to one loft. So it was like a mini one loft race, right? So 4, 5, 6, 10 people all had pigeons in that loft. And they all compete against each other, but to that loft on a local level. And that could be ran by flyers, existing fanciers, flyers, or it could be run by none, right? And different people have their jobs to run that loft. Takes a lot of time away where people have to do it all themselves. So imagine that. I'll come back to that, Chris. So imagine the idea of a community loft. And then imagine each one of these community lofts in each county, at least one. Or each major city, right? Or a locality. So now you've got multiple people competing, flying into one loft. But then them lofts are competing all together. So that's mini competitions within the loft, all competing with 50 to 100 other lofts around the country. Essentially, mini one-loft races becoming one big national one national race, and then even extending that club or whatever it would be would compete at national level with other clubs. So imagine that, right? Let's talk about it again. 4 to 6 people have pigeons in one loft, and each of them people have their own responsibilities, or one person could just run it. Then, so you've got multiple people competing at loft level, which is essentially a club level, yeah? A loft becomes a club. Then each of them lofts are competing against each other by county. That becomes its own national race. So what you would need to start is you would need a loft ran. The individual flyers could put X amount of birds into each, and that loft competes. The flyers within that loft compete against themselves on a weekly basis. But in addition, they compete with all the other lofts in the same club. Imagine that. And then imagine if each club wanted it, and again it's optional, a betting element of that. And then imagine all of those birds being sent with existing races or national races. Wouldn't birdage go down? Over time it would go down, mate, yeah. But then what you've got is you've got the following year, you've got the ability for old birds then to compete. Yes, ultimately there would be less. You've got an old bird competition and a young bird competition at community loft level. And these community lofts could be run by a community, by a school, by an existing club of flyers. But they would be competing within their club, and then all of those lofts would be competing together. Essentially it becomes a new national club, but done completely differently. So that Joe Bloggs, who doesn't race pigeons anymore because he can't look after them all, can still have 4, 5, 6 birds in a race that actually is like a mini one loft race. And then all of those lofts are competing together around the country. Imagine that as an idea. That's kind of doesn't happen in China because they have community lofts. They'll have one location and they'll have 24 lofts all flying into the same location, but 24 lofts on the same site. That's what happens there. But this is a bit of a hybrid of that. I'd be interested to see what people think of that. Ian Gill, here's one I kicked about a good few years ago. Meaning community loft scenario. Corporate team building at all. These companies spend fortunes on God knows how many different things to build team building. Loft on the roof of the company HQ and racing against other companies. Really good idea. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about, Ian. Exactly. Sponsored lofts. But imagine a new idea for a club organisation that actually has... so instead of a club as we know it, each club has their own loft. And all of the members of that club have birds in that loft. And the pigeons in that loft compete against other lofts in other sections against other clubs. So it's a hybrid of a one loft race. And it doesn't mean people have got to... And then on a Saturday, all of the members of that club come to that loft and watch the birds come in. So you've still got the exact same... Obviously, it's not in your back garden, but you've still got the same enjoyment factor. I think that's a bloody great idea. I'd be interested to know what other people think. I'd be interested more to talk to you about, Rob, what you thought about that. But that's what that's one way that you could buck the trend. And then you haven't got all this radius rubbish and clubs booting people out and stuff. Any loft can to become a part of it if there's more than 2 people racing. And then over a period of time, essentially what you're talking about is a new club, but things done differently. Oh, and all of the lofts race on the same ETS system. Everything's centralized. Everybody can see every time. Everything happens anywhere. I think that's a great idea, and it's something radical that needs to happen like that. I'd be love to know your thoughts on that. We have enough specialist clubs to have a one big... Exactly, but imagine that, Gary. Imagine... Yeah, but you see, James, that's the top fancy's not going to want each other in the lofts. Everybody's equal. Everybody in that loft competes against everybody because the top guy, he can still only have the same amount of birds as anybody else. So the rules would be for the loft, you can only have a certain amount of birds in that loft each flyer. Level playing field. Mini one loft races at club level. Mini one loft races at club level. I think it's a great idea. I'd love more opinions. Really would. Because I think, based on what I've seen out there in China, it's a hybrid of that. It never happened here. Can you imagine 24 lofts on an allotment over here and the bloody arguing that would go on and everything going on? But this hybrid idea would work. And then all of these lofts, essentially each loft is a mini competition within it. And then all of them lofts are competing against each other on a local, sectional, and a national level. I'd be interested in your thoughts. Right, I have more to talk about, but they're the main things. How do you think birdage will suffer, Walter? I'd be interested in your thoughts on that. Perhaps message me if you would, and I'd like to hear about that more. I have more to talk about going into 2020, more ideas and more thoughts, but it's been an hour and a half, so I hope you enjoyed the catch-up on China and the ideas I've got. And as I said, the similarities between model railway hobby and our sport. Like I said, something radical's got to happen, and all around the world I'm going now, looking at what other people are doing, and I'm getting the best of the ideas from all around the world. I'm going with this stuff. I'm just trying to look at what can be done. Chris Bennett says, great idea, Mark. As you said, I think you could bring in new people into the sport and also bring some of the old guys back. Yeah, exactly. Guys that can't look after their own. They could have 3 or 4 birds in the loft. It gives them an interest. Yeah, exactly, Anthony. It's a mini one loft that then, so they're mini one loft races, really. They're mini club one loft races that then all compete against each other. So it's a multiple one loft race mini approach. That's what I'm talking about. I like the idea. I think it'd be a great club idea. I'd like to know your thoughts, and if it's something you'd like to be involved in or like to help develop the idea more, let me know. A couple of other really quick things. Due to the popularity of Gary Tomlinson's interviews he's done on here and telling you everything he knows that there is to know about racing, I'm delighted to inform that Gary will be bringing out a DVD video, all being well in time for Blackpool show. So watch this space. It is happening. Hopefully, well, it will happen in time for Blackpool, but we'll see. Really quickly, let's see. Exactly, it'd be a good idea for schools. Walter, because we've got 5 fanciers in one loft, only sending certain amount. You need some big senders to keep birdage up. We've all sent 3 or 4 on one, but some likely to mob fly. It wouldn't be that kind of thing. You could have a birdage limit agreed by each club, which is essentially a loft, and that's it. Thank you, Jason, for the comments. So yeah, watch out. Gary's going to be bringing his first ever DVD out in cooperation with RPI. I'm going to be doing the DVD and the marketing for it, and Gary's going to be telling you everything he needs to know about everything he's talked about already. Lots of people have asked for it. What we're also going to do is we're going to be, again, thinking outside of the box. We're going to be putting a book to come out with the DVD so people can read it, and there'll be sheets in there, and there'll be all kinds of stuff. Don't know, Scott. We'll let you know, mate. We're busy trying to get this DVD and book sorted out at the moment, but we'll let you know. Because there's a lot, like I said, we've said before, the great thing about Gary is he's never racing again. He's only doing a one-off race. He's never racing again, so he's got nothing to hide. So yeah, that's something there. Like I say, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's been great to be back. It's been 3 weeks. Thank you to Aaron that did a couple of weeks before. I am actually not travelling now between now and Blackpool, actually. No more travel. And actually, while I was away in China, this house move finally went through. The house actually went through while I was away in China, so we've got work going on in there, and all being well, we're moving in mid-January, and then we can start actually moving, which is great. So that's happening on as well, all behind the scenes. Lots going on. Need more videos aloft. Maybe if you were sorry to say it's hard to get fanciers to work, even if it's for their own good. Tried it, done it. Yeah, Aaron was saying, Walter, that he really struggles to get people on video. People don't like it. So yeah, we'll see. We'll keep trying. I actually have somebody else asking about being a reporter as well, which is good. Anthony, would both be out at the same time, Mark? Not sure, mate. We'll try our best to get the book out with the DVD, but maybe the DVD will be first and then the book slightly later. We'll see. We'll see. The book's going to take longer, but the goal is to get the DVD out in time for Blackpool. So yeah. You're in Germany, David Reynolds. Cool. Right. Thank you, guys. I will be back next week. Before Christmas and all that. I may have said before, I'm not a massive fan of Christmas at all. I love it that family get together, but you can do that. You can do that anytime. But I like it that people get together, but I'm not a fan of Christmas. Hate it, actually. It's a pain in the ass. But I will be back, Mr. Scrooge, before next week. Chris, Aaron we have found a supplier for the t-shirts and merchandise and stuff, and I'm hoping that they will all be available ready for Blackpool as well. So I hope that's it. As I say, to be honest with you guys, the amount of traveling I've been doing has put me back on stuff, and some other business stuff got in the way, and it's been a bit of a nightmare, if I'm honest, time-wise. But between now and Blackpool, going nowhere, so I'm focusing on getting the stuff that I'm behind on doing. Actually start shooting the video on Friday with Gary, so that's good as well. Thank you, guys. I will catch you next week. As usual, if you want to message me, comment, please do so. I've said it before on Facebook, I'll say it again. Facebook is not the best way of getting me. I just don't have the time to monitor it. The best way of getting hold of me is emailing me, mark@racingpigeoninternational.com, or WhatsApping or texting me on 07887 345 600. That's 07887 345 600. That's the best way of getting hold of me. Because it's just sheerly a time thing. Tell me your thoughts on the mini one-off race community club new club idea. I would love to hear it. Thanks very much for watching. Catch you soon. Be lucky. Have a good day. Keep flying and have a good rest of your night. Thanks a lot.